MIDI. One choice for adding sounds to multimedia applications is the use of digital audio sound files. This can become very memory intensive, however, for large sound files. For example, a stereo 16-bit/sample 22 kHz sound file requires greater than 5 bytes per minute of audio. Maybe too much, for example for ringtones on a cell phone. As an alternative to the use of sound files, MIDI files have been considered. MIDI, Musical Instrument Digital Interface, is a standardized control language and hardware specification. Allows suitably equipped electronic musical instruments and devices to communicate real-time and non-real-time performance and control data. MIDI data is communicated digitally through a production system as a string of MIDI messages. Each message describes an event which occurs during a musical performance. MIDI. The messages are transformed into the sound described by the message/event by a synthesizer. MIDI can be created using a MIDI editing program, or they can be recorded from a performance on a MIDI-capable device, a MIDI controller, and subsequently edited using the same program. MIDI data can easily be converted into sample data, but the reverse is not true. MIDI messages are transmitted, in a serial fashion, through a single MIDI line at 31.25 kbits per second. MIDI communication is unidirectional. No error detection/correction, so max cable length of 50 meters. Usually, MIDI instruments and devices are linked together in a daisy chain fashion. The following slide shows an example. MIDI ports. MIDI devices may have up to 3 ports. MIDI input to receive data, to be played back/synthesized by the device, for example. MIDI output for MIDI controllers which generate their own MIDI data. MIDI through to pass the input data to the next MIDI device in the daisy chain arrangement. MIDI devices. MIDI controllers generate performance data in MIDI format. MIDI synthesizers generate audio output based on MIDI data. A single keyboard might act as both MIDI controller and MIDI synthesizer. A synthesizer can be some hardware, instrument, or a program, soft synth. MIDI sequencers can be used to receive, store and edit MIDI data. Either hardware device or an application program. MIDI sequencers. The sequencer